Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture we're going to create our fault-tolerant WordPress site using CloudFormation. We're going to use a CloudFormation template that's being provided to us by Amazon Web Services. So if you do go on and work as a solutions architect in the AWS space, a lot of what you will be doing is CloudFormation. CloudFormation is a way, and I like to use the example of bootstrapping most of AWS's services, not all of them, but things like EC2, things like Elastic Load Balancers, Route 53, things like RDS, DynamoDB, etc. You can basically turn your entire infrastructure into code using CloudFormation. And then you can apply things like version control. So you can have different versions of your infrastructure and continuously improve it. You don't have to worry about physical servers anymore. You don't have to worry about physical switches and SAN and anything like that. Your infrastructure literally becomes code. And this is the true power of AWS, is CloudFormation. And this is what you'll be using day in, day out as a solutions architect if you work as a SA professionally. So let's move on to the AWS console. So I'm in the AWS console, I'm in the EC2 section. I just want to show you how to tear down our environment. So we're just going to go down to our auto-scaling groups, and I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to go in Actions and hit Delete and hit yes. So that's deleted our entire auto-scaling group, and then we're just going to go over to RDS, and we want to delete our RDS instance as well. And we don't really need to worry about creating a snapshot of it. I'm just going to go in and hit delete. You see my SSH window being sad that I've just terminated everything. So I'm just going to not create a final snapshot, go ahead and hit delete. And the other thing you should always remember, guys, and this is can come up and bite people, is Elastic Load Balancers cost you money. So don't forget to delete your Elastic Load Balancers as well. So I'm going to go in here and hit delete. And because they're not visible in the EC2 dashboard very easily, they're over here, but people do tend to forget about Elastic Load Balancers. So okay, so my entire environment's now shutting down. So the next thing we're going to do is go over to CloudFormation. So to keep things simple, I'm going to change my region. So I want to come over to, let's say, Frankfurt, and I'm going to deploy into Germany. And now what I want to do is go over to CloudFormation. Okay, so here's CloudFormation. Now, a word of warning, guys, CloudFormation is its own animal. It's at least its own 8 to 10 hour course. Understanding CloudFormation in a lot of depth is beyond the scope of this course. This course is obviously certification related, but if you do want to go on and work as a solutions architect in the real world, you definitely know how to use CloudFormation. For the purposes of this lecture, I'm just going to go in and create a stack. We're going to have a little look at the template view, but we're not going to make any changes. So we go in and hit create a stack, and you can see here we can either design a template ourselves or we can use a sample template. I'm going to use a sample template, and I'm going to go down to multi-availability zone samples. We're going to select our WordPress blog, and we can actually view this in a template in Designer. So this will build out a little network diagram. It's pretty cool. So here we've got our Elastic Load Balancers. Here we've got our database security group. Here we've got our web server security group. We've got another security group. We've got our DB instance, we've got our launch config groups, and if you click on them, you can see the individual components. So this is what makes up the launch config group in CloudFormation. This is the code that is launching it. If we want to see the entire template, we click in here and we can see the entire template. You can then go ahead and maximize and just read it through here. You can see it's in the familiar JSON document. And in here, you can see we've got the version number, the description, and then the different parameters that are being passed, and then what our allowed values are. Now, we do go into how JSON works in our security course on our platform, and we are definitely going to have a CloudFormation course on our platform very shortly. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit close, and we're just going to leave this page. We didn't make any changes, so I'm going to go back, create the new stack, and I'm just going to use the WordPress blog under multiple availability zones and go ahead and hit next. Now the stack name, just going to call it my WordPress ASG CloudFormation, and you can see here's our different parameters. So that's what we were seeing in that JSON document. You could edit this. So I'm going to just have my DB as a T2 small. I'm going to have 5 gigs of storage. I'm going to be really insecure and just write everything as a cloud guru, and then I'm going to use my web server is going to be a T2 Nano. I'll do T2 Micro. with my key name. That's just the name of my private key in order to SSH in. So mine's called my German key. I'm going to make my multi-availability zone true, and my web server capacity I'm going to start out with 2. So go ahead and hit next. I'm just going to hit never for this. So then this is our tag, so we'll just call it name, and then we'll call it WordPress ASG CloudFormation. And in here, we can do additional options for our stacks, things like notifications, stack policies, etc. So you can have an SNS topic, we can have it timeout, rollback on failure. I'm just going to leave this all as the default value and go ahead and hit next. And so that's it. We go ahead and hit create. So this will now create my WordPress site. So I'm going to pause the video here. It's probably going to take me about 5-10 minutes, but this will create all the resources in order to display our WordPress site in a fully fault-tolerant setup. So it's going to provision things like our security groups. It's going to provision our web servers. Our web server is going to run their own Bootstrap scripts. They're going to install Apache. They're going to install PHP and MySQL, etc. And this is all included in that CloudFormation template. So for us as system administrators or solutions architects, all we need to do is keep this template up to date, and we can roll it out for customers all over the world. It just makes provisioning resources much easier rather than going in manually like we did in the last 4 labs and setting up these complex environments. We can actually do it all through scripts. And that really is the true power of AWS. It just makes things so much easier to deploy and provision. And I'm doing this in a completely new region. I can take my scripts for my production environment, which might be Magento, might have like an online store, and I can, so long as I script it and turn my infrastructure into code, I can then deploy that in Asia Pacific, or I can deploy that into South America. And if I lose a region, I can quickly deploy it in another region. And if you architect it really well, you can make it so that it doesn't matter if a region goes down, your users will still be able to use your online store, which is hosted in other areas in the world. And the great thing about this is it's really, really cheap to do. It's just amazing. You don't need to go out and rent data center spaces in all these remote areas of the world. You just deploy into another AWS region. And that really is the power of AWS. That's why it is the most powerful cloud computing platform on the planet. It's things like CloudFormation. It's the number of regions they have around the world. It's being able to turn your infrastructure into code. And that's why it's so exciting. That's why I love AWS. Anyway, enough out of me. I'm going to pause this video and we're going to wait for CloudFormation to provision our resources. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh the screen. And it's still a create in progress. We can actually see our events in here. We started this at 11:39 a.m. and it is right now 11:53. So it could take about 20 minutes, but it's still going to be a lot quicker than if I was doing this manually. So I'm just going to pause the video again. Okay, guys, well, the create is now complete. The time is 12:01, and we can actually see that the create completed at 11:57. So it took just almost 20 minutes, slightly under 20 minutes to create it. So why don't we go and we can have a look here, our different outputs. So this is our website URL. It's already given us a URL. And if we click on this, we will be able to see our WordPress site, and we can go in and start configuring it. We go back to CloudFormation, we can see what resources it has provisioned. So we've got our security groups, we've got our DB instances, we've got our web server groups, we've got our web server security groups, etc. And if we want to go over to the AWS console, we can actually see these resources in play. So we can go in here, see our 2 running instances. I can now simulate a failover. I can just go in and terminate this instance, and the auto-scaling group will detect that and automatically heal it normally within 300 seconds if they've left the default values. And so that's it. It took 20 minutes to build out the entire stack using a CloudFormation script. And we can customize that even more. So we could actually customize the CloudFormation template to download our pre-existing WordPress site from an S3 bucket. We can use things like code deploy. We can use a whole bunch of different technologies with CloudFormation to make sure our website is almost instantly available. We can deploy an entirely new website into an entirely new region within 20 minutes, and our CloudFormation template will provision all those resources. So that's why CloudFormation is really really, really cool and really, really powerful. It really does mean that you can get away from traditional infrastructure and you don't have to go out and get purchase order requests and all that sort of stuff in order to host your site. You can put it all in CloudFormation and you can make it portable, you can version control it, you can update it, etc. So CloudFormation is amazing technology. So that is it for this section of the course, guys. I hope you've learned a lot. You can see the power of AWS. So in the next section, we're going to move on to the white papers. It is quite important that you read the white papers before sitting the exam, especially the security white paper, as it will give you a lots of easy marks. So if you have any questions about the labs or any comments, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next section. Thank you.